By golly, it's recording.
I can see the red dot.
Obviously, I'll go in and edit this.
That was my next question.
Okay, are we ready?
We are.
Okay, here we go. Let's stop that and start over. I think we got to record this first. This will be, they'll see how a real production is done.
Okay.
Sorry, folks. This is how it's really done. So I got to start this. Well, good morning. Welcome once again to the old KOHI garden spot. Master Gardener Darrell Boom here with Chip Bubel out of the OSU County Extension Service, right here in Columbia County. Chip, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Darrell. How are you?
Good. Happy New Year again, and we've been into it about a week now. And one of the things I've got done New Year's resolution-wise was I have a single-car garage, and it now has a single car in it.
Yes. That's wonderful. I've seen Darrell's garage, and it wasn't that it was cluttered or dirty or anything like that, but it had a lot of stuff in it.
It did.
And I can see some of it's been moved into the closet nearby here.
In Studio B, that's correct.
Other locations. And Diana, I'm sure, is very happy to have the car in the garage.
I think so. I think she's in shock over the whole thing. But anyway.
Change is change.
Yeah, before we get going here, we always talk a little bit about our sports teams. The Portland Pilots will start their conference action tonight against Gonzaga. In Oregon State, I think they're struggling a little bit.
They went up into the state of Washington and unfortunately had played a couple of good close games, but lost them both. They were in both those games, but they came out on the short end of the.
Yeah, and I've been reading the talk, and they said even though he's the president's brother-in-law, that won't necessarily help him keep his job. You got to put some W's up on the board. So anyway, we'll follow that as we go. Excuse me. Let's talk about the first topic, and you're getting a lot of calls on moss on the lawn, and here it is the middle of winter. Why is that?
Well, people notice it. They wander, when the snow melts, they start wandering around and looking at what's going on or whatever, and they see that the moss is very green, very abundant, whether we're talking lawns or whether we're talking roofs. There is just a lot of moss, and we've had a mild winter. That tends to accelerate the growth of moss. It's been a little bit drier than normal, but it's been moist enough to also put the moss into high gear. So bottom line is that most of the moss problems we'll deal with later on. For example, the moss on the lawns we'll deal with them probably in March or April when we start renovating the lawns or fertilizing the lawns the first time, those kinds of things. Moss on the roof can be dealt with a little bit now. In fact, it's most often dealt with when the moss is actively growing, which is now. So
really,
there are some moss control compounds. They can be there's some zinc type compounds there's some variety of them that are out there that are pretty effective on moss control. Some people have had some luck using some soap type compounds or even the granular washing detergents kinds of things sprinkled on have sometimes helped. So anyway, those can be tried at least on roofs. Be careful when you're on a roof though. If the moss is actively growing, it's potentially slick as well. So take a lot of care.
Very much so. Chip, this next topic it's kind of a strange one to me. It's like deja vu. We're going to talk about planting a Douglas fir, and you apparently get calls on that, people wanting to do that, and then I'm asking you why people would do that, and then you reminded me that we did that in Scappoose, and what we did is that when you looked out our beautiful front window at this panoramic view of Mount Rainier, we saw a nice big power pole in the pasture. So basically, we planted a Douglas fir in front of that and watched it grow, and it kind of, it blocked the pole a bit. Anyway, so let's talk about people who would like to plant them and why they would do that, and then where it's the best time and where to get them, etc.
Well, this is the time of the year to plant them. Basically, from January through early March is the ideal time to plant any of these needled evergreens. Douglas fir, western red cedar, all those kinds of things. They do very well this time of the year. And the reason to plant them, typically you have a fairly decent sized lot or acreage. There's a lot of people that are living in Columbia County on, say, 2-acre lots, rural residential lots, those kinds of things. And they may want a screen, or they may have a little back section of the property that they're really not using for anything, and they just soon see some trees growing there. Some people plant them and then culture them into Christmas trees a few years later. So there are a lot of reasons for doing it, but nevertheless, so where do you get them? There are sources from commercial timber replant companies, but usually you have to buy bundles of seedlings, and the minimum bundle is 50. But they can be very cheap that way. There's a tree sale every year by the Small Woodlands Association that happens in early March, and watch the newspaper for that. But that tree sale will have also the ability to buy a wide range of these native species, as well as some others that can be used to plant out, and they'll do very well as well. So anyway, those are some possibilities. And along the roadsides, if you see some small Douglas fir seedlings, you actually can just grab them. You can.
I mean, it's
in the especially if it's a right of way, a public right of way. Don't put yourself in any danger grabbing them.
With your neighbors.
With your neighbor. Be careful. Know what you're doing. But those trees will do okay if you pick the smaller ones. The bigger you pick, the more difficult they are to transplant. So anyway, those are some options.
Okay, thanks, Chip. We'll continue this message after, or this show rather, after this message from the Electric Feed-In Seed.